If you're easily scared, save this for daylight. You've been warned. Have you ever seen a soul reaper? I hope not. But I have. Not in a dream, not in a movie, for real, in a pitch black courtyard on a freezing winter night in northern China with my own two eyes. I saw the gear standing on the rooftop. Above me, towering, still wrapped in something dark that didn't quite look like shadow. I was years old. Before I get into it, let me clear something up. In Chinese folklore, the Black and White Impermanence, the soul reapers are not specific individuals. They're a role, a job title. Think of them like bee cops, but for the underworld, every district has its own pair assigned to patrol the boundary between the living and the dead, collecting souls that have wandered out of place. Most people only know them from TV dramas, to guys in tall hats, one in black, one in white, showing up to drag you to the afterlife. But the real folk records, way more layered than that, way more unsettling. I'll get to all of that. But RST, let me tell you who I am, where I was, and what happened that night. I'm from Shanxi province in northern China. Back in the early 2000s, my parents left for the city like millions of other families did during China's big migration wave, and I was left behind in the village, living with my grandparents in an old Yaodong cave dwelling carved directly into the yellow earth cliff. If you've never seen one, picture this: instead of building a house on top of the ground, people in that region dug into the hillside and hollowed out rooms. No bricks, no concrete foundation, just the earth itself holding everything up. A thick quilted curtain hung over the entrance to block out the cold. The windows were wooden lattice frames with white paper glued over them, and on sunny days, a thin yellow light would litter through. Our cave home sat halfway up a lowest cliff on the east side of the village. Behind it was the mountain. In front was an open dirt courtyard enclosed by earthen walls. Growing along one wall was an old scholar tree, an acacia, with a trunk so thick you couldn't wrap your arms around it. In summer it was full and shady. In winter, the leaves were long gone, and those bare, twisted branches just stuck up into the gray sky, looking bleak and scraggly. On top of the cave dwelling was a wide, flat roof, big enough to dry grain on. Powdery wood. Even walk around during harvest season, my grandparents would drag out a couple of stools, sit up there and shell corn while chatting. They always said the cave was the best kind of house. Warm in winter, cool in summer, better than any brick home. But quietly, between themselves, they also said something else. They said a cave dug into the earth was too close to the ground, too close to whichever lives underneath, that the yin energy, the cold, dark, death-adjacent energy, ran heavy in a place like that. I was too young to understand what that meant. I just remember my grandfather had this habit of burning incense at the courtyard gate and along the windowsill every time the season changed, mumbling something under his breath. While he did it, my grandmother kept a folded yellow paper tucked under her pillow. She said it kept bad things away. I thought it was just superstition, old people stuff. I didn't think about it again until that night. It was winter. I can't remember the exact date, just that it was bitterly cold. It had snowed lightly during the day, stopped by evening, and left a thin white crust on the ground that crunched underfoot. My grandparents had gone to bed early. Rural winters were like that, no nightlife. Once the sun went down, the lights went out. The whole family piled onto the big, heated brick bed platform that ran along the wall, buried under heavy quilts while the north wind hammered the windows outside. That can was warm, the quilts were heavy. It should have been impossible not to sleep. But sometime deep in the night, I woke up. Now, country kids in those days didn't go outside at night. You didn't need to. There was a chamber pot right next to the can, but that night I opened my eyes, my head completely foggy, and something pulled me out of the covers. Not a sound, not a voice, just a feeling, like something outside wanted me to come to it. I don't even remember putting on shoes or a jacket. I probably hadn't. I probably still had my socks on from the day before, but somehow I climbed down from the can and walked toward the door. With both hands I shoved aside the heavy quilted door curtain and stepped outside. The courtyard was dark. The only light was a sliver of moonlight catching the trunk of the old scholar tree, throwing the bare branches into pale gray silhouette against the black sky. I stood in the middle of the open courtyard, half asleep, and crouched down to relieve myself. And that's when it hit me. This feeling, crawling up my spine from the base inch by inch. You know the feeling I mean, you're walking alone at night. And suddenly, without hearing anything, without seeing anything, you just know there are eyes on you, fixed, unblinking, not the wind, not your imagination, but a real, physical awareness pressing into your back, the kind that makes every hair on your body stand up, the kind that stops your breath. I looked up. My eyes traveled up the courtyard wall up to the roof of the cave dwelling above, and I stopped breathing. Two gears were standing on the roof, tall, impossibly tall, thin, their silhouettes stretched long. In dark in the pale moonlight, I stared at them, and I realized that their outs were exactly like the Soul Reapers from the classic 1986 TV adaptation of Journey to the West, the ones everyone in China grew up seeing. Tall cylindrical hats sitting on their heads like chimneys, making them look even taller, even stranger, long robes, hanging completely still. And there was wind that night. I'm sure of it. But their robes didn't move at all. They just stood there looking down at me, no expression, no warmth, no emotion of any kind, like two clay statues. Except they were watching me. Here's the strange thing about being a child. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I didn't understand death yet. Didn't understand what ghosts really meant. Didn't have years of scary movies. An adult warnings building up fear in me. My RST reaction was just curiosity. I tilted my head back and stared up at them with wide eyes, the way a kid watches a magic trick. Then things changed. They moved. They rose onto their tiptoes and began moving down the slope beside the cave dwelling. One step, two steps, a strange, stilted bounce, not the way people walk, more like marionettes jerked by someone who didn't quite know how to work the strings, stiff, unnatural, every landing carrying that eerie, offbeat rhythm. But they were fast. Impossibly fast. Those jumpy, jerky movements covered the distance in what felt like no time at all. In seconds they were at the bottom. Then at the courtyard gate, a heavy wooden door bolted shut from the inside with an iron lock. They didn't stop. They walked straight through it, like the door was made of water, no sound, no resistance, just passing through. And suddenly I was terrified. Whatever curiosity I had shattered instantly. I spun around and scrambled for the entrance, threw myself at the quilted curtain, and pulled with everything I had. It wouldn't budge. The same soft, uppy curtain I shoved aside with one hand just a few minutes ago. Now it was like pushing against a wall of iron. I yanked and yanked. My eyes were burning. I opened my mouth to scream for my grandfather, my grandmother. Nothing came out. Not a single sound. And then I felt them behind me. I turned around. Two faces, white as paper, inches away. They were tilting their heads at me. Their eyes had no light in them, dull, like dead eyes, and yet they were studying me with what I can only describe as mild curiosity. The way you'd look at a strange bug you'd never seen before. Not angry, not cruel, just empty. That total indifference of being looked at like you're not quite a real person was more terrifying than any anger would have been. My arms wouldn't lift, my legs wouldn't move. Everything felt like it was lead with lead. I wanted to scream. Silence. Then came the chain. I didn't see where it came from. 1 second my neck was bare. The next I felt it ice cold, bone deep, like metal that had been sitting at the bottom of a frozen well. It settled round my throat without a sound. And I started walking. Not because I decided to. I was being pulled, dragged forward like a puppet on a string, mechanical and helpless. I kept thinking the gate is locked. The iron bolt is on the inside. They can't take me through a locked gate. They can't. But when we reached the gate, I felt that same sensation. Cold, humid, like passing through the surface of still water. And then, everything was gone. The scholar tree, gone. The courtyard wall, gone. The outhouse, the path to the village, the cave dwelling, all of it, gone. In every direction there was nothing but pale gray emptiness. No ground I could feel, no sky I could see, no sound, no wind, nothing. The only thing that told me I still existed was the weight of the iron chain around my neck. The two gears walked ahead of me. I followed. That void had no sound at all, no footsteps, no wind, no rattle of the chain dragging, just silence so total it felt like pressure on your eardrums. I don't know how long we walked. I don't know where they were taking me. My Fog started to blur at the edges like a candle burning. Low, cold, silence, despair. Those were the only three things I had left. And then a thought rose up, simple and terrifying. Am I dying? Am I really going to die? I'm only VE. Just as my mind was about to go completely dark, the chain dropped. One sharp, bright sound, the metal hitting ground, ringing out through that absolute silence like a crack of thunder. I snapped back. The two gears ahead of me were fading, their outlines blurring, growing thin, dissolving into the gray mist like smoke, until there was nothing left of them at all. And in the place where they had been, far off in the fog, a light, faint, flickering, small as a ray. But in all that gray nothingness, it stood out like it was the only real thing in the world. Like someone had left a lamp on for me. I didn't think, I just ran. No exhaustion, no effort, my legs just went faster than I'd ever run before, lighter than I'd ever felt. I ran toward that one small light through the formless dark, and I don't know how long it took before the fog broke open, like a curtain being yanked aside. And there was the courtyard. My courtyard, the old scholar tree, the earthen walls, the cave dwelling, the quilted curtain over the door, everything exactly where it had always been, like nothing had ever happened. I didn't slow down, I ran straight at the entrance. This time nothing stopped me. The curtain parted like air. The wall had no resistance. I passed through like a breath of wind through leaves. And then I saw something that has stayed with me every single day since. I froze in the doorway. By the dim light inside, I could see the can. A child was lying there, tucked in under heavy quilts, perfectly still, breathing slowly and evenly, face peaceful, eyes closed. That child was me. I was looking at myself. I stood there for a second, mind completely blank, and then something pulled me forward. I walked to the edge of the canyon, lay down, settling into my own body. The moment I did, everything came back at once. The warmth of the quilts, the weight of the blankets, pressing down on me, the rough feel of the cotton sheet against my skin, and that sensation you only get in the dead of winter, crawling into a warm bed after being somewhere cold. That wave of heat starting at your feet and moving up through your whole body, slow and certain and overwhelming. I gasped awake. My eyes opened, struggled to focus. Two faces looking down at me. My grandfather, my grandmother. Terry, red-eyed, on the verge of tears. My grandmother was holding my hand with both of hers, rubbing it over and over. My grandfather had lit an old lamp near my head, the kind that looks like a candle, and the aim was jumping, throwing warm yellow light across the room. Standing beside the can was a woman I didn't recognize. Old, from a neighboring village, I'd later learned she was. Holding paper talismans and red thread, murmuring something low and rhythmic. A bowl of water sat on the table. There were traces of ash in it. I said, "Grandma." She grabbed me and held on and started to cry. Afterward, my grandparents told me what had actually happened that night. I had never gotten off the can. Everything I thought I experienced, the walking out into the courtyard, the two gears, the chain, the gray void, all of that happened to my soul. My body had been lying in the same spot the whole time. The reason my soul left in the RST place. I wet the bed. The physical sensation triggered something, my soul, loose and unmoored in the way that young children's souls apparently can be, drifted free, and it wandered right into the path of the soul reapers on their nightly rounds. The old woman explained it to my grandparents with a term, Sukongchang, running into an empty patrol. It's a folk belief young children, especially those who are sick or frightened or just constitutionally fragile, are prone to soul-body separation, and soul reapers on duty aren't malicious, they're just doing their job. When they encounter a wandering soul, they follow procedure, they chain it, they bring it in, whether that soul is someone who's already dead or just someone who got loose by accident. That's for the underworld's process to sort out. The Black and White Impermanence aren't evil. They're bureaucrats. My grandfather had gotten up in the middle of the night to use the outhouse and found me shaking on the can, mumbling incoherently, impossible to wake. My grandmother panicked. They stayed up the rest of the night, and at our ST light went to ND help. Eventually they tracked down this old woman from the next village, known for this kind of work. She performed rituals all day. She used the soul-calling lamp, that old lamp near my head, to call my spirit back into my body. I didn't wake up until the following evening. Years have passed since that night, and every time I think about it, I ask myself the same question. Was it just a dream? I've read enough about how dreams work to know their usual shape. Dreams are fragmented, jumpy, illogical. The details dissolve the second you open your eyes, like sand running through your ears. The harder you grip, the faster it goes. That night was different. The memory is complete, coherent. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. In every detail is as sharp today as it was then. The silhouettes of those figures on the rooftop, the bone-deep cold of the chain closing around my throat, that single faint light in the gray void, and the moment I lay down in my own body and felt everything coming back. Dreams don't feel like that. Dreams don't have that logic, that continuity, that physical texture, the ice of the chain, the warmth of the quilts, the shockwave of sensation when my consciousness snapped back into place. I can't say for certain it was real, but I can't convince myself it was just a dream, either. It felt like something that actually happened, something I survived. After that night, as I got older, I started researching. I wanted to understand what the Black and White Impermanence actually were, not the TV version, but the real folk tradition behind them. What I found surprised me. Most people assume there's a specific deities, X names, X appearances, X personalities, but in the layered world of Chinese folk belief and Taoist cosmology, impermanence isn't to individuals. It's a category of work. Think of it like the police force. You have detectives, track cops, beat officers, plainclothes units, all part of the same system with different roles. The underworld works the same way. The soul reapers are the lowest level elf agents. They patrol the boundary between the living and the dead, escort souls, and keep order in their assigned districts. The Black Impermanence are hard, cold, unyielding. Their job is to chase down the dangerous ones, malevolent spirits, souls that have overstayed their time and refuse to go, entities that shouldn't be wandering free. They carry chains. They come at night. They are the enforcement arm. The White Impermanence is gentler. Their role is to guide good souls, people who have died peacefully, naturally, without grudges or initial business. Walk them down to Yellow Springs, as the saying goes. In some regional traditions, the White Impermanence is even associated with good luck. Some communities offer incense to them, alongside their wealth gods. And because death touches every corner of the world, there isn't just one pair for all of China. Every region has its own local soul reapers for local souls. That's why the stories vary so much. It's gears, 10 gears, men, women, chains, tokens, robes of different colors, because what you're seeing in all those stories isn't a specific being. It's a function, a pulse. Whoever holds it in your district is whoever you'll encounter. The word impermanence comes from Buddhism. In Sanskrit, the concept means nothing stays the same. Everything is always changing. Nothing that exists will exist in the same form forever. The Buddha taught this not as a threat, but as a fact, so that people could loosen their grip on things that were never really theirs to hold. Wealth changes, relationships change, health changes, life itself changes, and one day ends. Ancient Chinese folk traditions borrowed this concept and gave it a face. To faces actually tall, pale, holding chains, appearing without warning in the middle of the night to remind you death is not something that happens to other people. It is always possible. It does not check your bank account or ask your age. It does not announce itself. This is not a punishment. It's a reminder. Everything you hold belongs to this moment, not to forever. The ancestors built these gears into their mythology not to terrorize people, but to wake them up, to live with awareness of how brief and precious and uncertain the whole thing is. To be good, to be careful, to be present. Because you genuinely don't know. That night was a long time ago now. I've grown up. The kid who wet the bed in a cave dwelling in rural Shanxi became someone who reads books and tells stories, but the memory has never faded. On some quiet winter nights, or when I'm alone late in the dark, I'll feel it. Again, the silhouettes on the rooftop, that single light in the void, the moment I saw my own body lying on the can. I don't know what really happened. I have no way to prove any of it. What I do know is this: my grandparents sat up through the entire night beside me at Terry, refusing to leave, an old Woman came from another village and spent a full day performing rituals to bring me back, whatever was happening in that room, whatever was real and whatever wasn't. Their love was real, their fear for me was real. The light from that soul-calling lamp in my memory is warm. I'm not asking you to believe in ghosts. I'm not asking you to bow down to every shadow or tree. These stories as documentary evidence of the supernatural. But I do think there's something to be said for holding a little space, just a small amount of humility for the things we can't explain, for the forces we can't see. Because that night, whatever those figures were, they took me, and then they let me go. Maybe my time wasn't up yet, maybe someone on the other side lit a lamp and pointed me home. I'll never know for certain, but the sound of that chain dropping and that one small light and all that gray nothing those two things have never left me. This world is stranger than we think, and more forgiving. Be good to people, stay humble, leave room for the unknown. That, I think, is the best thing you can offer to whichever is out there. Alright, that's the story. If you had something like this happen to you, or if you're into folklore and strange experiences like this one, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Some things you just have to live through to understand. Like and subscribe. See you next time.